If you were in a restaurant or a park and somebody collapsed, would you know what to do? Tori Gabriel of the Florida Heart Research Institute dropped by to tell us about PUSHCPR, what it is, how to do it, and how it can save someone's life. Well, Tori, let's start off by welcoming you to our show. Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks so much for having me, Dave.
All right, so we're going to talk about something that impacts a lot of people. Sudden cardiac arrest, the nation's leading killer. 300,000 Americans die from it every year. The first thing I think to figure out is what exactly are we talking about? Are we talking about a heart attack, or are we talking about something different?
No, sudden cardiac arrest is actually different from a heart attack. Typically, a sudden cardiac arrest is when the heart has an electrical problem versus a heart attack is when there's a plumbing problem.
Okay.
So typically what happens is an arrhythmia. And so the heart's not beating normally. And it happens very suddenly without any warning.
And the scary thing is it could happen to anybody, no matter, correct me if I'm wrong, what kind of health you're in, right? I mean, healthy people, correct. Athletes, we hear about this a lot.
Correct, correct. It can be genetic. It could be something that comes through your genetic code, passed down through the family. It can also just happen without any warning. So
yeah, I mean, when you think about it from that perspective, it's kind of depressing, and it's pretty daunting to think about. It really sort of puts into perspective our mortality, right? Because it could quite literally happen at any point in time, which really brings us to why you're here today, which is what we can do about it, right? And how important it is to act quickly to do something about it right away.
Right. Unfortunately, the survival rates for sudden cardiac arrest are really, really low. It's averages about 7%, which is tragic. But there's so much that can be done to improve survival rates, so that's why we're here today. Okay,
so let's talk about your group and what you guys do specifically, the Florida Heart Research Institute, and your campaign to educate people with PUSHCPR.
Sure. Well, first off, Florida Heart is a very small nonprofit. We're statewide in our education and prevention, and we're national in our research. All we do, our mission, is to stop heart disease through research, education, and prevention. There's no treatment. We entered into this project because we realized how low survival rates were and how much we could improve survival rates through educating the community about CPR.
And now we're talking about PUSHCPR,
correct.
Which essentially means no breathing, right? Just compressions.
Right.
Why is it that we've kind of moved away from the breathing and the compressions?
Well, I'll be able to show you when we do the demonstration, but the simple act of pushing on someone's chest moves air in and out of the lungs, and that helps to circulate the oxygen throughout the body, and so therefore the important organs are getting the oxygen just simply through pushing.
And like you said, we're going to have a demonstration in a couple minutes, so we're going to look at exactly how to do this. But correct me if I'm wrong, the important thing is just to do something, right? So if you're out in a situation and somebody collapses and you've checked and they're not breathing, even if you're not sure exactly what you're doing, while you're waiting for 911, do something.
Correct. Most people know to call 911, and then after that they just sit there and watch the person die. If it's a true cardiac arrest, they're going to be completely unconscious, and they won't respond to anything if you smack them around or whatever. So you need to start compressions right away. For every minute that that person is without oxygen, it's a 10% less chance of survival.
So let's talk about something you just hit on. They're going to be unconscious. They're not going to be able to respond to commands, which means if you ask them permission, can I do this, you're not going to get an answer. So I think some people might be cautious to perform CPR because they're afraid of getting sued. They're afraid of doing something wrong. Talk about that.
Sure. Florida has what's called a Good Samaritan law, and most states have them, which means that if you see somebody who needs help, it's fine for you to jump in and try to help them without fear of being sued or liability.
All right, well, this is very important. Everybody needs to have at least a general idea of what they're doing. So I think the best thing is to have a demonstration, and you can show us, if we're ever in this situation, how we can give PUSHCPR.
Great, let's do it.
All right. Okay, Tori, talk us through PUSHCPR.
Okay, very simply, you come across a victim who is unconscious and not responding. Typically, if they're on a bed or whatever, you want to put them on the floor. Like Michael Jackson, they did CPR on the bed. You don't want to do that. It needs to be a hard surface. So for demonstration purposes, we'll use this desk, but typically you're doing it on the floor. You try to get them to respond. When there's no response, you check for breathing. If there's no breathing, then you know you need to start CPR right away. The way you do that is you find the nipple area and you go straight to the center of the chest. You take your two hands, lock them together like this, put it in the center of the chest, and you want to push hard and fast at 100 beats a minute, going down 2 inches in depth. So you want to keep your elbows locked, which is hard when you're doing it on a desk, but not so hard when you're kneeling over the person, and put your whole torso over them. And just keep doing this until help arrives.
But let me jump in here for a second. You're going to get tired doing this, right? If you're by yourself, you've called 911, what do? You
can't stop. You got to keep going.
Right.
But you don't have to, the beauty is you don't have to stop to do mouth to mouth. The person's clinically dead anyway, so you can't hurt them. There's nothing you can do to hurt them. If you have somebody with you, ask them to go try to find an AED. This is what one looks like. They're great. They're idiot-proof. If you've never seen one before, it will walk you through exactly what you need to do. It'll tell you everything. And the key is to just keep doing this until help arrives, and don't stop until the paramedics tell you to stop, because it's going to give them a few minutes to get their
Right, so even when they do arrive,
don't stop.
You keep doing it, yeah. And you don't have to worry about breaking the breastbone or anything like that.
No, because they're already clinically dead.
Right.
So if you break a bone, you're still helping to keep them alive. Worry about that later.
Right, and again, I mean, just to reiterate, this whole process is fairly simple. There's really not much to it, right?
So simple, even kids can do it.
You mentioned kids, actually, so if it's a child or baby, for example, then what?
Right, we tell them you want to go about 1/3 down the depth of the chest, whatever that is, and you want to go really fast, and you don't want to push as hard as quite hard as you would on an adult, but just go really, really fast and just do that until help arrives.
Okay, and got to be on a flat surface.
Yeah, has to be.
Okay. People watching that want to learn more about your organization, want to get educated on this, what do they do?
Okay, well, we have 2 websites to direct them to. One is floridaheart.org, and the second one is pushcpr.org. And we will go out into the community and provide this training absolutely free. Just give us a call and we'll make it happen.
If you're not sure how fast or with what rhythm to pump, you can always perform CPR to the tune of Staying Alive. Just hum it out loud. Apparently, you can also use Another One Bites the Dust, but that just feels wrong. That's all for today's show. Remember, if you have any ideas as to what we should cover, you can always send me an email at feedback@sfltv.net. You can follow us on Facebook and follow me on Twitter @Dave Aizer. Hope you have a great rest of the weekend, and I'll see you next week.